January 1945. The forests of Thuringia lie silent under a pale winter sun. The boots of the American Third Army crunch through frozen earth as they push deeper into the heart of Germany. In the distance, smoke rises from chimneys, not from homes preparing evening meals, but from something else entirely. The soldiers don't know it yet, but they are about to encounter a place that will reshape their understanding of what human beings are capable of doing to one another. Among the advancing units is a young private from Ohio, carrying letters from home in his breast pocket. He imagines grand battles, heroic stands, the glory promised in recruitment posters. What he cannot imagine, what no American soldier can imagine as they march through these quiet German woods, is that the true horror of this war lies not on battlefields, but behind the barbed wire of places like Buchenwald. The concentration camp sits on Ettersberg Hill, a location once celebrated in German literature as the wandering ground of Goethe himself. By April 1945, when American forces finally liberate the camp, they discover over 20,000 prisoners barely clinging to life. The smell reaches them first, a combination of decay, disease, and burning that no amount of training could prepare them for. Then come the images: walking skeletons in striped uniforms, mass graves, and the crematorium still warm with ash. But there is something else waiting for these soldiers, something that will crystallize the depravity they're witnessing into a single, unforgettable symbol. It waits inside a villa, on a hill overlooking the camp, in a bedroom decorated with objects that should not exist. The name Ilse Koch means nothing to these soldiers when they first hear it. To the prisoners of Buchenwald, however, she is die Hexe von Buchenwald, the witch of Buchenwald. She is the wife of the camp commandant, Karl Otto Koch, and her reputation among the inmates is one of sadistic cruelty that exceeds even the institutionalized brutality of the SS system. Witnesses will later testify that she rode through the camp on horseback, carrying a whip, selecting prisoners at random for punishment. They speak of her sending prisoners to their deaths for the smallest infractions, or for no infraction at all. But it is what the American soldiers find in her private residence that transforms abstract reports of Nazi atrocities into visceral, undeniable truth.
The villa stands in stark contrast to the camp below. While prisoners died of starvation and typhus in overcrowded barracks, the Koch family lived in luxury. The house features fine furniture, art on the walls, and all the comforts of upper-middle-class German life. The soldiers move through rooms that could belong to any wealthy family in Munich or Hamburg. They find nothing unusual in the parlor, nothing remarkable in the dining room. Then they open the bedroom door. At first, the objects appear merely decorative. Lampshades cast soft light across the room. Books rest on shelves bound in what looks like fine leather. Gloves lie on a dresser, supple and carefully crafted. The American soldiers inventory these items with the clinical efficiency of men cataloging enemy property. But something feels wrong. The texture is unusual. The color varies in ways that tanned animal hide does not. One soldier picks up a lampshade to examine it more closely. He notices what appear to be markings, not printed designs, but something organic. Tattoos. Human tattoos, carefully preserved in the skin of concentration camp prisoners. The realization spreads through the unit like a physical wave. These are not leather goods. This bedroom is decorated with human remains. According to witness testimony later documented in the Buchenwald trials, Ilse Koch ordered SS guards to identify prisoners with distinctive tattoos. She would have these prisoners killed, their tattooed skin removed and processed into household objects. A lampshade here, book bindings there, gloves crafted from human skin. The reports seem impossible. The imagination recoils from accepting such methodical depravity. Yet the physical evidence sits before these soldiers, undeniable and obscene. The soldiers expected to fight an enemy army. They did not expect to become witnesses to industrialized genocide. When American forces first received intelligence reports about Nazi concentration camps, many dismissed them as propaganda or exaggeration. The human mind struggles to accept systematic atrocity. Even Jewish organizations in America, desperate to sound the alarm about the final solution, faced skepticism. How could a modern European nation engage in such wholesale slaughter? How could educated people who produced Beethoven and Goethe, reduce human beings to raw materials? The bedroom in Ilse Cook's villa answers these questions with brutal clarity. This is not the passionate violence of war, not the heat of battle atrocity that soldiers might understand, if not forgive. This is something colder. The reduction of human beings to objects processed with bureaucratic efficiency and casual domesticity. The lampshades don't just represent death, they represent the complete erasure of humanity, the transformation of people into things to be used and discarded. General Dwight Eisenhower, upon touring concentration camps in the weeks following liberation, issues a prescient order. He demands that soldiers photograph everything, document everything, preserve all evidence. He knows that future generations will doubt. Get it all on record now, he says. Get the films, get the witnesses, because somewhere down the road of history, some bastard will get up and say that this never happened.
The items from Ilse Koch's bedroom become part of that record. They are photographed, cataloged, and presented as evidence in war crimes trials. Medical experts examine the lampshades and confirm they are made from human skin, noting the preservation techniques used. The artifacts are too specific, too documented to be dismissed as wartime fabrication. For the soldiers who discovered these objects, the psychological impact is immediate and lasting. Many of them had fought across France and into Germany, had seen friends die in combat, had witnessed the ordinary horrors of war. But this discovery fundamentally alters their understanding of what they're fighting against. This is not merely a war between nations or ideologies. This is a war against a system that has elevated human degradation to an industrial process. The liberation of Buchenwald forces approximately 80 American congressmen and journalists to tour the camp. General Eisenhower arranges these visits deliberately. He understands that the American public must see, must confront, must be forced to acknowledge what their enemies have built. The witnesses walk through the same rooms the soldiers did. They see the same evidence. They smell the same smells. Many become physically ill. None leave unchanged. Among the liberated prisoners is a young Jewish writer named Elie Wiesel. Though he is not yet the Nobel laureate who will spend his life bearing witness, he is simply prisoner A7713, trying to reconcile his survival with the death of everything he knew. Years later, he will write about the silence of God in the face of such suffering. But in April 1945, he can only observe the American soldiers as they process what they're seeing, the shock, the revulsion, the transformation from skepticism to horrified belief. The lampshades become a symbol that transcends their physical reality. In the years following the war, historians debate the exact extent of Ilse Koch's crimes. Some evidence proves difficult to verify. Witnesses contradict each other on specific details. The chaos of the camp's final days, the destruction of records, the death of potential witnesses, all complicate efforts at complete documentation. Yet the core truth remains undeniable. Human skin was processed and used. Objects were made from human remains. Whether the exact number was 5 lampshades or 3, whether every item attributed to Koch can be definitively proven, becomes almost beside the point. The objects represent something larger than their individual verification. They symbolize the complete moral collapse that the Nazi regime achieved, the transformation of human beings into raw materials for everyday use. They represent the banality of evil, the comfortable domesticity of genocide, the ability of human beings to normalize the unthinkable. Ilse Koch herself maintains her innocence at trial, claiming the charges are fabrications by vengeful prisoners. The courts find otherwise. She is sentenced first by American tribunals, then later by German courts. She commits suicide in a German prison in 1967, having never shown genuine remorse for her actions. The American soldiers who discovered her bedroom carry those images for the rest of their lives. They return home to ticker-tape parades and grateful embraces. They marry, have children, build careers in the prosperous post-war years, but the memory of that bedroom follows them. In interviews decades later, veterans of Buchenwald's liberation speak about the lampshades with voices that still shake with residual shock. The image remains pristine in their minds, the soft light filtering through human skin, the casual placement of these objects in a home, the absolute proof that evil can make itself comfortable in domestic spaces. What they expected when they enlisted was clear battle lines, heroic charges, the adventure sold to them in newsreels. What they received instead was the burden of witnessing. They became the ones who saw, who documented, who carried the proof back to a world that preferred not to believe. They discovered that the greatest horror was not the dramatic evil of battlefield slaughter, but the quiet evil of bureaucratic murder made routine, normalized, decorated with lampshades in a comfortable bedroom. In the end, the contents of that bedroom represent a truth about ideology unchecked by human dignity. The Nazi system didn't merely kill its victims, it denied their fundamental humanity even in death, processing their bodies with the same industrial efficiency applied to manufactured goods. The lampshades weren't acts of passion or rage. They were choices made in calm deliberation, aesthetic decisions about home decoration. They reveal what happens when human beings are successfully transformed into categories, when other becomes so thoroughly ingrained that skin becomes indistinguishable from leather. The American soldiers who liberated Buchenwald carried with them the promise of a different vision, however imperfectly realized in their own nation, however complicated by America's own historical sins. They represented the idea that human dignity possesses inherent value, that no ideology justifies such complete degradation of human life. The shock they experienced in that bedroom was the shock of recognizing the abyss that opens when these principles are abandoned entirely. Those lampshades still exist in archives and museums, carefully preserved as evidence. They serve as proof against denial, as warning against complacency, as reminder that civilization's veneer proves remarkably thin. They force viewers to confront the question that haunts all Holocaust history. How did this happen? How did ordinary people participate in such extraordinary evil? The soldiers who found them asked themselves the same question. Walking through that bedroom, cataloging human remains turned into household goods, they witnessed the final destination of hate unconstrained by moral limits. They saw what their enemy truly was, not merely a military force to be defeated, but an ideology that had to be completely eradicated, purged from the earth like the poison it represented. And in the quiet moments afterwards, sitting in the spring sunshine outside that villa, smoking cigarettes with shaking hands, those soldiers understood with absolute clarity what they had been fighting for all along. Not just territory or political systems, but the simple recognition that every human being possesses an inherent dignity that no ideology, no matter how powerful, has the right to destroy. The lampshades proved, in the most horrifying way possible, what happens when that principle dies. They would carry that knowledge home, those soldiers. They would carry it into American suburbs and farmhouses, into marriage beds and Sunday dinners, into the building of a world that promised never again. The promise would prove difficult to keep. Other genocides would follow. Other horrors would unfold. But the memory of what lay hidden in the witch of Buchenwald's bedroom would endure, a permanent testimony to the darkness humans are capable of creating and the eternal necessity of bearing witness to that darkness, no matter how much we might wish to look away.